When I was young, I want to say probably late elementary school years, I distinctly remember having a conversation with my mom where I told her that someday I wanted to own a horse farm. And her response to me was that when she was young, she had had the same dream. Well, in our cases, neither of us lived that dream. Neither of us ever owned a horse farm or even a single horse at any point in our lives. But I do remember that being one of my very earliest dreams. And I don't think I'm alone in that. If you have also had a dream like that, then you are going to love the conversation that I have today with Annie Levitt. Annie is the best-selling author of First Day at Halsey Hollow Farm, which is a beautiful, sweet story about a horse finding his way to his new home and his new owner, and what that was like as he first arrived at the Halsey Hollow Farm. There are a lot of lessons in the book, and Annie talks about those in our conversation. And she also shares a little bit about herself, about Halsey Hollow Farm, which is where she lives and is a real place, and about the writing process and what it means to write a children's story. I'm going to let her finish all of that. And so I invite you to sit back and listen in as Annie Levitt shares her story. Hey everyone, it's Kelly. It just takes one, and I am so happy right now for two reasons. One, this is the first in-person podcast interview that I've been able to do, and I'm so happy because we don't always have local authors, but Annie Levitt is with me, and she is a local author, and so she was able to come into the office today so we could actually sit side by side and have a conversation.
It's so nice.
It's so nice. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
And the second reason I'm excited is because look how high tech we have gone. We are showing her book behind us, which is very cool and kind of, for me, a little upscale technology here because I'm not always the best with technology. So I hope it looks good for those of you that are watching, and for those of you that are listening, check out the video on YouTube so you can see how high tech we got.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
It's great. We are going to talk today with Annie about her book, First Day at Halsey Hollow Farm. I am holding my copy of it, which I have had for a long time, but I haven't had a chance for you to sign it yet. So I'm actually going to ask you to sign it today for me, if you don't mind. Have you been giving out a lot of autographs?
I have. I have been giving out autographs. It's hysterical.
What does that feel like? Like, what does it feel like when somebody asks you to do an autograph?
First, I'm panicked because I want to make sure it's grammatically correct.
That's real.
That's real. I just feel so honored, and I don't know. I think it's like giving a piece of myself to them, and I just love it. It's not about the autograph. It's about for me, I just hope that people really enjoy the story, and the fact that they're interested enough to look at it and to read it is really such a gift to me. So that's what it's about. It's just like, holy mackerel.
I did it, right? I have so many authors actually say things like that to me, where they get a chance to be signing it for the first time, and they just feel like you said, like it's this gift to be able to share this thing that was so important to you with them, and that they care enough to want to read it and to have it in their hands.
Exactly.
Right?
It's more of a gift to me than for me a gift to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That they are interested in it.
Yeah, I think it's great. So I want to talk about the book today, and about writing the book, and about the reason that you even wanted to write this book. Okay. And I'll also preface this by saying Annie and I have known each other for a long time. And let's tell them how we actually connected on writing the book, because we knew each other as friends well before this. And then I hadn't seen you for a while. COVID happened. I just hadn't, our paths hadn't crossed for a while. And then tell everyone what happened.
So it's really kind of fluky, right? I mean, I met you because I had a dear friend tell me, you need to meet this woman. She does so much to inspire people with their health and their fitness and well-being, and you've got to meet her. And she does so much in the community. So that was back at the great Studio 8, and I got to meet you there. And instantly, I think we bonded, so actually the book was written already back then. It was just tucked in a drawer for years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was tucked in the drawer for years. My girls were little, and I would, just illustrate or paint at night. And I had always wanted to write children's stories. And so anyway, so the way this became published and we reconnected was, it's very funny, but I was reading this book on sort of inspiration and destiny and just trying to get through COVID, and I was on a walk, and the night before, an old friend had stopped by who has horses and had a question about her horse for me. And my husband, out of the blue, said, "Oh, did you know that Annie wrote a book?" And it was hysterical because I was like, why are you even bringing this up? It's been, I wrote that book probably 20 years ago. And so he was insistent that I have her look at the book. So I think I was climbing up on a bookshelf trying to find the book, and I put the illustrations out, and I handed her the manuscript, and which was just like a word perfect thing. And I left the room because I was so embarrassed, because I didn't have much confidence in myself in the whole process. And I came back in the room and she was crying.
Oh.
And I immediately was like, "Oh, you hated it." I don't know. She's loved it. And she said, "You have to publish this." And she herself is a horse person that I respect very much. And so, and as a mother, and she was a teacher that I worked with, we both taught together. So this is a woman whose opinion that I really respect. I think she's just one of the kindest people in the world. And so the next day when I was walking, I thought, wow, maybe she was put in front of me for a reason. And maybe I should follow the directions on this book and, the one that I was reading, and I'll try to find some publishers. So I went home and I took a picture with my iPhone of an illustration, and I took a little paragraph out of the book and I submitted it. I Googled publishers and I submitted it. And about the next day, I think I had 4 to 6 publishers contact me that they wanted to publish it. And I thought, I know nothing about this. I don't even know who I would trust. And I remembered that you were a successful author and had published books. At the time, I didn't know that you had your own publishing company. And then I called you and asked you if I could run some things by you. And you said, "Well, I own my own publishing company." And I said, "Well, the decision has been made." Will you publish my book? And that's how that happened.
There's so many things about that story I love. One being the synchronicities that happen when you just put it out there into the universe, and then you never know, like weird connections get made because the energy is being poured toward it. So I love that piece of it. I also did not know that it had been written that long ago. We have actually a lot of authors who say that to us, who say, I put it in a drawer, I don't know what to do with it, so I just put it away. And the same kind of fears that you were talking about as well, not feeling like it was good enough, or, not knowing what to do, even where to begin. So it just sits there and does nothing until all of a sudden you pour a little energy in, and then boom, you have a book right here behind us.
Well, the funny thing too is that's kind of the theme about this book, right? It's all about confidence and stepping into the unknown. So, so I think that's really where I was like, go for it.
Yeah, it's exactly what you did. Although we're talking about it now, but this was written 20 years ago when you were writing this about confidence.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about the book.
Okay.
So the book First Day at Halsey Hollow Farm is about this beautiful relationship that's happening with this horse and what happens with him. Share what the story's about.
So I was always a horse kid from day one. I think kind of a cute story. I was in kindergarten and I kind of told a lie that I was taking riding lessons, and someone called my mother to see about that. So anyways, my parents realized they needed to get me riding lessons.
Did they call because they wanted to see if you
they
had
wanted
lied?
Their daughter
because they wanted their daughter to have lessons.
So my parents kind of realized that I needed to get riding lessons. We had a neighbor who had a horse, and I used to just play horse all the time and just wanted wanted one. And anyway, I always wanted my daughters to grow up with the same experiences I had, because I have learned so much navigating through life with my horses. And I worked for every single one of them. I was the kid that would clean every single stall at a local stable so that I could get a riding lesson. And anyway, so I wanted my kids to have the same thing. And my husband and I bought this old beat up farm. Was covered with burdocks and a lot of junk. And we at the time had blended our families together. And so he had been a bachelor for 8 years. He inherited these little kids and all these horses. Poor guy, didn't know what he was getting into, sucker. And anyway, so we ended up, all the horses in this story are horses that were on the farm at the same time. And we ended up getting this pony for my daughter, Mary Ellen, who was, wanted to learn to ride. I'm not sure if she did or I wanted her to, but at any rate, this friendship developed between the two of them. And a lot of life lessons have come out of the friendship. And some of them are blended from what I took away from the horses that I've had in my life. And some of them are the ones that I witnessed my daughter grow in.
I think that's pretty interesting. As listeners and viewers are watching this and thinking about how many of them either have horses or had the dream to be near horses, there's almost something. I remember actually when I was young telling my mom that someday I was going to own a horse farm. I don't know where that came from. I don't own a horse farm. I've never had a horse.
Right.
But at some point in my life, I actually wanted that dream too. So I think there's something kind of magical about horses that is different than other animals. Can you describe that somehow?
I do. I think that they are the kindest creature on earth. They're so kind and they're so majestic and they're so beautiful. But I also understand that as kids, like, you love them and you see them and they're free, right? They give you this, there's all of this freedom, you think, and think about galloping over fields or whatever. And there's a lot of discipline, but I have witnessed, and I remember the first day that I was up close to a horse. They're huge. Right. So all of a sudden you have this dream of, oh, this is the most beautiful creature in the world. And I want to pet this creature and I want to bond with this creature. And then you look at their head and their head is from your head to your torso. And you're like, oh, they're huge. And there is that fear. And I think they teach you a lot about first impressions and getting through them and trust. And so there's so many lessons that they teach.
Yeah, and that's interesting. You're absolutely right. There's something about their size and sort of that feeling, even when you're up on top of a horse and you're so high up, and there's this feeling of the excitement and fear mixed together. But I love the idea that they are also these kind.
Oh, they're so kind. They're so kind.
For somebody that doesn't know a lot about horses, that's not a term I would use to describe them. Yeah. So it just shows that, for those of us that don't know a lot, that there are pieces that we could experience differently if we knew more. So in the book, Captain is the horse. Mm-hmm. Mary Ellen is the little girl character. What does she experience in the story that has to do with learning kindness and learning these lessons from her horse?
Well, this is sort of an introductory story, but it starts off and it's about the anticipation of both of them meeting each other for the first day. And there are certain, like in life, there are certain rules that we have to follow and norms, and in their lives, they have that too. So the pony has certain barn norms that he has to follow. And he's been recognized to be safe enough to have an owner of his own. And in her world, she's been recognized enough to be responsible enough to take care of an animal and to form this friendship. So I hope I'm answering that question. Yeah. So those are kind of the lessons, but it's this anticipation and sometimes this exuberance that you have to kind of keep in check and case out the situation first so that you can progress in the friendship.
Yeah. And in this story, it's about the horse and this little girl, but really it's for anybody,
Right.
any kind of relationship, that you have to learn what each other needs and what each other is about,
Right.
and kind of go slowly into that. And sometimes you go a little too much, and then you learn how to step back from that, right?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So let's talk about why a children's story and why not any other kind of story. It could have been a novel, it could have been a fictional thing.
Because a children's story is short.
That's one reason.
No, not at all.
That's one reason.
So I love children's stories. When I was probably in about 4th grade. My dad was in a terrible car accident and he was laid up. And so what he did to kind of get us through that is he would read to us all these stories. And he would use all these crazy voices and he would be so animated. So I tell this, but literally I would run off the school bus and I just couldn't wait till I was going to hear another story and have him read to us. And so anyway, so that was my first wow, this is so much fun. I love it. And I really always read to my kids and I would read to my students when I was teaching, and I loved using the voices. And I found that whenever I was going through a difficult time or I saw my kids going through a difficult time, we'd just pick up a children's story. And you cannot obsess over your problems when you are reading a children's story. If you want to try to get into the present, you just read a children's story out loud to kids. And I think you become the best version of yourself. I say it all the time, but I also think it puts you so in the moment. You can't help but enjoy it.
I love that.
So I used to think all the time about stories with my kids. I am kind of artistic. Wouldn't say I'm an artist, but I do have a creative mind. And I know I would take hikes with my daughters when they were little and we would make up stories along the way. And I just love them.
That is such a beautiful description of what it's like to read a children's story, to think that it allows you to become present and not distracted by whatever the outside world is anything you're dealing with in the outside world. But also this idea that it brings out the best version of yourself.
Yeah, because you can be anybody you want. You can get those. I love them.
I do too. And my mother was the one who would read us stories, and we would sit at night and she would read a chapter of the Boxcar Children at the time.
Yeah.
I remember.
How many times did you play in the woods, and then you'd take that in and you'd pretend that you were the lost kids in the boxcar.
That's right.
All the neighborhood gang.
Broken dishes and all that. Yeah, exactly. And it gets your imagination. But there is something, I also remember sitting in the library in elementary school and having the librarian read to us and loving there's something very settling about having somebody read out loud.
Yeah, it's that exchange. It's the space that you're nurturing between the reader and the listener. And I think that's what we need more of today, is that nurturing space between us.
Yeah. So this book is the first of a series, because this horse and this character, Mary Ellen, have lots of adventures ahead. This is just the first day that they're meeting. And you also did the illustrations. So you were saying that you're not an artist, but I would beg to differ. You definitely are an artist. I'm going to actually share a couple of the illustrations with people so that they can see how beautiful, not only the illustration on the front cover, those of you that are watching the video, but these beautiful illustrations that Annie did in addition to writing. And I'm sharing that not only because it's great to showcase the book, but also because I think there are listeners out there who would love to draw their own illustrations for their book and maybe didn't know that they could do that or how to go about doing that. So one of the things that we talked about when we were doing the book was how to place these illustrations, how to make them so that they popped off the page. Lots of little detailed things, like which side of the page is going to have the writing and which side is going to have the illustration on it.
We spent a lot of
time talking about those details. So share a little bit about that, because that's part of the process as well, making those kinds of decisions.
So it was really interesting because you and I worked on this project during COVID. So we were doing a lot by Zoom. And Kelly was great and Scriptor was great. And that I said, I want this to be a storybook. I want it to be read to children and maybe early readers to pick it up and read. But I kept thinking about how do I read out loud and how do I hold a story? So then you and I worked through on the pages. As far as anyone illustrating, I probably was a nightmare because I just had these paintings that I'd worked on really any piece of paper that I could find at the time, right? So they were different sizes. And we, luckily, because of modern technology, we were able to, get them formatted properly. So that was Scriptor, not me. So
that's when we hire the people that can fix all the problems.
Yeah. So anyway, so I would just go for it, to tell you the truth. And I will say this, it's so funny because I am not formally trained. I know nothing about illustrating, but I do like to draw and to paint. And watercolor can be so finicky, and I'm not very good at watercolor anyway, but I really do like doing it. I would just say do it, to tell you the truth. I think when I had the opportunity to read the story to some classrooms this year, and the really cool thing that I got out of it was every single question from these kids was, can I draw like that? Did you do these drawings? Do you think that I could do that? And I just kept encouraging them, yes, because today so many children's books their illustrations are computer generated. And so I think that they lose, it's okay to make a mistake. You'll see there are watercolors, you might get a splotch over here, or you might try to do too much detail, but if you are proud of it, if you think it's a good thing, then it's a good thing. Who cares what anybody else thinks? Right. And that's what I think we have to teach our kids, that
it's okay that it's not perfect.
Exactly.
And that you can fix things to make them just right if you have to.
Exactly. And you learn in the process. So I read this thing one time about if you ask a group of first graders if they can sing and if they can draw, every single one of them will raise their hand and say they can. And if you ask sixth graders whether they can sing or whether they can draw, you'll lose those hands. They won't raise their hands. And I'm just here to say everybody can sing and everybody can draw. And you may not, I don't sing well.
There's a spectrum of it,
sing. But I can sing. And I just think, you know what? We have to get away from searching for perfection, because that tree out there is gnarly, but it is perfect. So that's my message.
I think it's a beautiful message. I think it's a beautiful message for kids. I think it's a beautiful message for parents. And I think it's a beautiful message for all of us, that things don't have to be just right for them to be doable. That there are ways and resources and tools, lots of tools out there to help get it done. It doesn't have, you don't have to wait for that perfect situation or that perfect moment.
Because your perfect is not my perfect and mine is not yours, but they're still beautiful.
Yeah, so great. A really good additional lesson to all of this. But it's a good inspiration, because a lot of the people are tuning into this are people that are interested in books, interested maybe in writing. And so it's good to be able to share with them a little bit about some of the back end, what happens behind the scenes, because all they see is perfect book, they don't know all the bits and pieces. But what the other thing that I think is interesting to share with them is what happens once you actually have the book. So I heard you say that you were able to go out and share it and read in some classrooms. Tell us a little bit about some of your experiences since you've become an author and what that's been like.
Well, it's so funny because my other job is sales and marketing, right?
This is not your full-time job.
But I am absolutely the worst sales and marketer of this book, let me tell you. And I've gone into some of these bookstores, into different places or in classrooms. And it's so funny because I am so sheepish. I'm like, I wrote this book. And people are just like, yes, we're absolutely interested. Oh, it's beautiful. We love it. And so I think I'm just floored, to tell you the truth. And then I think I might be off the subject, but the other experiences, the truly the best experiences is that I've been going to my mailbox and I get drawings from kids. I get, thank you letters. I have emails because my email is in the front cover. I get these emails and I'm just floored by the response and these cute, great kids that really love the story. So for me, it's just the biggest gift.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I always, it just takes one, right? The title
Right.
of the podcast. I am always fascinated by that idea because I always think if you write a book and one person is inspired by it or one person gets
Right.
one thing from it, then it was worth doing it. And now you're already finding sort of these unexpected
Totally
number
unexpected.
Of responses to it.
Yeah. And the relationships and it's just been so much fun. It really has been fun. And then at the most unexpected times.
Yeah, which is great too, right?
Yeah.
I was just on a call with somebody the other day and they were talking about, marketing their book and all these things that they need to do right when it gets published and they're going to call here and go there and do this. And I said, well, just remember that marketing is forever. So
Right.
Once you have the book, you don't have to do everything all in the first week. You can market the book anytime, anywhere, any opportunity you have, literally for the rest of your life, right?
Right.
So it's the long game that you play with marketing. But to get the responses certainly keeps you motivated to keep putting it out there.
Yeah. And to write the next one. It's like, wow, I did this. It does make a difference.
Yeah. And is there some sort of feeling that you get when you see a kid hold it and read it or see it on a shelf somewhere that isn't your shelf?
Well, I think the first feeling was when all these kids, when I was reading it, and it was the cutest thing. They like scooch up closer. They were scooching up closer. And I was so excited about that. And then again, getting like little drawings. And yeah, sometimes I'll see the book. I still, every time when I look at Amazon, I'm like, oh my God, that's me.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing, I'll take it's in the Lake Placid bookstore and it's in a couple of tack shops. So it's kind of fun because you see it and you're like,
I did it.
Yeah,
I did that.
Yeah.
I think that's someone said to me one time, nothing changed. I was the same person yesterday as I am today, but because I'm an author, it somehow creates a different response to me.
Yeah. Well, like people will say, they'll introduce me like, this is Annie. She's an author. And I'm like, I am.
Wait, where is that person?
Yeah. So I'm still me. I'm just me.
Yeah.
Really. I'm just me.
Yeah. Which is exactly what you want to be.
Right.
But it is so nice to have something of you
To
that
share.
can walk outside of you.
Right. I love our farm and to be able to share it with others because I feel so blessed that we have this. I just feel so blessed to be able to share a little bit of it with others is really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I'll put in a little side note. I drive by your home every once in a while because we'll be heading out that way and we're on Halsey Road. And just this past weekend when we were going out to play golf, we drove by your house and the barn is there and you've got all the sides are down and there's flowers everywhere. It is the most beautiful, peaceful place. And I've never even been on the farm. I've never been there, but I've driven by it so many times. And every time there's just this beautiful feeling of peace and it just feels welcoming there.
Yeah. There's a good ecosystem going on there.
Yeah.
I'm very blessed.
Yeah, it really is. So one of the things that you said is that reading out loud is a really important piece of the experience, especially for a children's story. So would you be willing to share, you don't have to read the whole thing, but would you be willing to read out loud for just a few minutes, just to share a little bit of your story?
Sure.
And you can pick any part of it that you would like to share. No pressure.
No pressure. Okay. What about this one?
Excellent.
so just a little, here's this pony first day on the farm, and he's meeting, he's entering into the barn, he's meeting the new horses. So I'm not sure if you can see, but you can see maybe his expression as he's meeting some of the new horses for the first time. Next to Kodiak was a pretty mare. She was gray with dapples from head to hoof, flashy and very noisy. Captain quickly figured out the high-pitched whinny he heard when the trailer arrived belonged to her. Her name was Snow Day. That's a nice name, he thought, but with her personalities, she should be called Scattered Flurries. That's a good one for upstate New York, right?
It's a very good one.
So that's kind of gives you a little bit of Captain's personality.
Absolutely. And those names, were those names that you
Yes.
made up, or they were actually horses?
They were actually horses.
Yeah.
They were actually horses.
So it's kind of nice to be able, like, I think if I were writing a book about like the dogs that I've had, the pets that I've had in my life, and I would want to use their names because they were so meaningful to me, right?
Right.
So is it kind of nice to read their names and kind of remember?
Yeah,
of them?
yeah, it was. Because, this was written a long time ago, right? So yes, it was fun to remember their personalities. And just like dogs or cats, I'm not sure much about goldfish, but horses all have a really unique personality. Each one is so unique. So you really have to meet them where they're at when you're working with them, where that horse is at, which I think is with people too. We're all so unique that if we really want to forge friendships, we need to meet one another where we're at.
Yeah, agreed. So what's next? You said more stories for sure, but what do you see down the road here?
Yeah, so definitely more stories. I'm working on the next one with Mary Ellen and Captain. And then I'd like to write, I have more than just one daughter, and I joke, but I can't really just have a whole series on just one child. I'd start someone else.
It's not fair.
So I have some other stories which include Caroline, and that's sort of a pre-reader, maybe more illustrations where a young reader can string their thoughts together, which I'm really excited about. And then I have another story, and I can't wait to write it. That has been in my head, and it's going to be kind of a goofy children's story. I don't know but anyways, it's a name that my mother used to call all of us kids. I had a big family, and my mother used to always call us the Gooper Feathers. And so the story is about the Gooper Feathers, but it's not about kids. It's going to be fun.
A little different story.
Yeah.
On a practical note, because this is not your full-time job. You are in sales and marketing.
Right.
You have a family, you have horses, you have a full life. What's your process of sitting down to write? So you've got lots of great ideas, so that's great.
Right.
But how much time do you devote to writing? Is it a regular thing, or does it come in waves? What's your process for writing?
I would say that it comes in waves. So I have these ideas, and then I'll just write them on a scrap sheet of paper. If you're any kid in school, you do the bubble graphs, right? And you put all your ideas in and you link. And so I sort of start with that and then kind of develop them. And then I start thinking about illustrations and then how I want the story to evolve. And unfortunately, it does come in waves because there's only so many hours in a day. I would love to be able to devote time every day to it, but that just doesn't happen. So I do this because I love it. I don't want it to become something stressful.
Yeah, it's the joy of it.
Yeah. So I figure I have a few more years in my life, so I'll get it done.
We have to do everything today. I think it just was interesting to note it because my experience with writers is everybody has a little bit different formula, something that works different.
Can you tell me the successful ones?
Right here.
No.
I think most people would like to have more time to devote to it. If it isn't their career, it becomes fitting it in around other things. So that's always a challenge. But even just the way that you get it from an idea to the page, you're talking about sort of a mind mapping bubble.
Right.
And we actually, Greg and I encourage that as part of the process for people that works for. If you're a creative mind, that's a really good visual technique, right? Because you can put the bubbles and make the lines and it starts to come together and then you see it and you can go from there. But other people are more, they need an outline. Some people need to just start writing. Some people start in the middle and then fill in, come back to the beginning. Like everybody kind of does it differently.
Exactly. I just think it's a creative process and you're giving a piece of yourself and you're finding out about yourself every day. So it evolves, I hope in the winter months I can spend more time, because so I think that would be a nice way to spend evenings.
In the winters. Yeah, that makes good sense. So you've got lots of projects ahead, and certainly I'm sure more with the book. If somebody is listening and would like to buy the book, where can they purchase it?
Well, you can actually go on to Scriptor and then click on the link and it'll bring you to Amazon. Mm-hmm. You can go directly to Amazon, just search First Day at Halsey Hollow Farm or Annie Levitt, and it comes up. In some of the local tack shops, which is for horse equipment, they have the books. And I'm slowly getting it into some of the bookstores that feature local authors.
Great. You mentioned Lake Placid too. So if you happen to be in Lake Placid, check it out up there. It's always a good reason to go.
I know.
Might as well go to Lake Placid and buy the book, right?
Or you can call me directly.
Or call Annie directly, and her email's in here if you need to get in touch. I will make sure all of that gets in the show notes for anybody that wants to see it. I could talk to you all day.
I know.
I always love it. So nice to spend time with you, but let's go ahead and close up with my favorite question, which is about the title of the podcast. It Just Takes One. It is something that is fascinating to me because everybody answers it differently. And so I'm just curious, what does It Just Takes One mean to you?
Oh boy, there's so many things, I think it's taking one step. I think for me, it takes one story for you to read to your child or to a child that you love, a niece or a nephew, to create that space, cultivate a love of reading for life. And so I would just encourage you to just pick up that one book and carve out some time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I encourage you to do the same thing. Go out, pick up the book, read it to somebody that you care about, read it to a child, enjoy the story, enjoy the illustrations, and Annie, keep writing so we can read it. Thank you so much.